Humanity was already a problem before the session even began. That was the thought drifting through High Chancellor Valor's mind as he watched the chamber displays cycle through archived Terran behavior. Primitive burn profiles, rigid formations, and that absurd insistence on protocol precision. The humans sat in their assigned row like carved obsidian, silent and unreadable, as if unable of the 67-species assembly evaluating their future. Valor felt a slow curl of satisfaction, relics pretending relevance. The chamber light softened to diplomatic gold, signaling the start of the corrective session, and he leaned forward, ready to reshape them. He opened with a measured smile, the kind given to a misguided child. Humanity, he declared, had drifted too far from the proper galactic order. Their insistence on sovereignty was a structural inefficiency. Their kinetic doctrines, barbarous redundancies. Their refusal to adopt gravitic armaments, proof of arrested development. Snickers rippled through the upper tiers. An Aethran delegate whispered that humans still relied on hull plating layered like an antique relic, 12 strata thick. Another claimed their acceleration limits made them practically immobile. Stones pretending to swim, he murmured, earning a wave of laughter across the ranks. Valor let the mockery build. This was the shaping moment. If they felt small enough, they would bend. One punchline drifted through the chamber like incense. They still think physics is negotiable. The laughter sharpened. Even the humans didn't twitch. That somehow irritated him more. He continued with the corrective proposal. Terran fleets would undergo council-approved restructuring. Their outdated courier ships would be grounded until they adopted proper 12.4G safety thresholds, which everyone knew humans refused to follow. Their border posts would submit sensor logs for compliance review. Their delegates would attend behavioral recalibration seminars to learn acceptable diplomatic posture. The words tasted sweet. Every sentence pushed humanity further back into its rightful position. And yet, something in their stillness unsettled him. 9 delegates, identical in expression, hands folded, gaze forward. Not a flicker of indignation, not a swallow of fear. Just waiting. As if he were reading from a script they'd memorized long before entering the chamber. A thin discomfort threaded under his ribs. He dismissed it. He shifted to the formal reprimand. He described humanity as a species that misunderstood its place, behaving like an outdated engine running against the grain of the galaxy. He framed their independence as dangerous. He painted their strategic withdrawals, 3 in the last century, as cowardice. But even as he said it, a sliver of doubt pressed against his confidence. Those withdrawals had been too precise, too coordinated, too disciplined. No, he shook the thought away. Humans couldn't plan beyond immediate survival. Everyone knew that. Another stinger slid into the air like cold metal. Relics rarely recognize their decay. Again, the chamber erupted. Yet as sound washed over them, the humans didn't shift. They simply breathed in unison, the faintest synchronized rise of shoulders, as if marking a silent countdown only they understood. His discomfort sharpened. He delivered the final directive. Humanity would submit to monitoring until the Council deemed them aligned with the proper galactic order. That should have cinched their compliance. But when he looked at them again, their eyes had changed. Not rebellion, not fear, something colder. Preparation. The chamber quieted as the presiding bell chimed, and for the first time, Valor wondered if the relics were merely waiting for the Council to finish speaking. The thought lingered like a shadow as the session moved into procedural review. They rose before anyone understood what was happening. One moment, the chamber droned with the usual procedural tone. The next, the 9 Terran delegates stood in a single, synchronized motion, smooth, silent, and absolute. High Chancellor Valor's sentence froze midair. The shift was small, but the meaning hit the chamber like a pressure drop. No species in Council history had ever broken posture before the presiding bell. Not even the militarized Vosk, not even the fractious Uran blocks. But the humans simply stood, hands at their sides, eyes forward, as if responding to a command inaudible to the rest of the chamber. The upper tiers rustled. Aethran frills snapped in agitation. The Sarin scribes paused mid-trace. Valor managed a brittle smile and reminded the delegates to remain seated until given leave. Humans did not move. They did not blink. They did not acknowledge his authority in the slightest. Instead, the lead envoy, an older Terran with the bearing of a cold star, turned his head just enough to meet the Chancellor's gaze. Not defiance, not challenge. Evaluation. The chamber's temperature monitors dipped by a fraction. Valor cleared his throat and repeated the directive with more firmness. Still nothing. Then, as one, the 9 Terrans pivoted toward the aisle. Their boots touched the floor with quiet finality. No rush, no aggression, just disciplined departure, choreographed with unnerving confidence. A hush rippled outward. Someone muttered that the humans were staging a primitive protest. Another whispered that such conduct violated 3 council protocols simultaneously. The presiding AI pinged the anomaly, flagging it as a Category 2 disruption requiring immediate justification. But the Terrans neither slowed nor explained. They walked. A stinger dropped into the chamber like a blade. This is not permitted. And yet, they continued. Valor raised his voice, declaring that refusal to accept corrective terms would trigger formal censure. One delegate, the youngest, paused for a fraction of a second, just long enough to glance back. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes carried a message every strategist in the room could decipher. You assume we need your permission. A tremor of unease threaded the tiers. When the delegates reached the central corridor, the chamber security grid attempted a soft perimeter lock. Pale light flickered along the rails, scanning for compliance. Humans walked straight through it. The lock registered 9 signatures, attempted a hold, failed, recalibrated, and failed again. 3 attempts in under 5 seconds, an unprecedented malfunction. Valor felt the first true fraction of control. Something was wrong. Terran delegates should not have been able to bypass a council-level hold. It was designed to restrain beings far stronger, far faster. Yet the grid read them as non-hostile priority clearance transit. Someone had altered their profile. Someone had prepared for this. And still, the humans did not speak. Their silence said more than any declaration. Rejecting condescension was not rebellion, it was dismissal. They were leaving a conversation they no longer recognized as relevant. The chamber doors parted. No override, no protest, and the 9 delegates stepped into the corridor beyond. For a moment, the galaxy's most powerful assembly sat stunned, held in the echo of a choice they had never anticipated. As the door slid shut, Valor felt the first slide of fear. Whatever humanity was doing, it had started long before today's session. The containment order was issued less than 2 minutes after the doors sealed behind the departing humans. It moved through the council network with bureaucratic certainty, tagged as a standard Protocol 7 intercept, measured, moderate, and designed for compliance through intimidation. Nothing lethal, nothing reckless, just enough directed energy to halt a wayward species and remind them of their place. High Chancellor Valor watched the command propagate across the tactical hollow, confident the show of force would correct the insult. 12 interceptor ships drifted into position around the Council station's exit lane, their arrays warming along precise vectors. The containment volley was calculated at 18% power, strong enough to block movement, weak enough to demonstrate restraint. Humanity would stop. They always stopped when the order asserted itself. But the humans did not pause. Their 9 courier craft, sleek, dark, indistinguishable from one another, shifted into a shallow outbound arc. No evasive burn, no comms request, no acknowledgement. Just the steady confidence of a species that knew exactly what waited behind them. Valor authorized escalation. The arrays flashed. A synchronized wave of energy swept across the outbound lane, a barrier of shimmering blue built to force a halt. The volley struck the Terran ships cleanly. Efficiency metrics flowed through the hollow. Impact modeling, thermal spread, expected yield. The station AI calculated the humans' forward momentum should drop by 63% within 3 seconds. It did not. Instead, the impact telemetry twisted into impossible readings. Energy absorption, 94%. Residual bleed, 0.8%. Structural fluctuation, negligible. The couriers continued forward at precisely controlled velocity, as if the volley had been no more than a passing mist. A quiet, chilling line flickered across the tactical interface, auto-generated by the station's prediction engine. Containment ineffective. Reassessing threat class. Gasps filled the chamber. Valor demanded a rescan. The arrays fired again, 22% power this time. The humans absorbed it with the same almost insulting ease. A third volley followed, then a fourth, adjusting angle, frequency, and harmonic spread. But each time, the Terran hulls drank the energy without deviation in trajectory or acceleration profile. Every pulse converted to harmless dispersion. No heat spikes, no hull stress, nothing. "What shielding is this?" a Vask commander hissed. "It isn't shielding," murmured an Ethran technocrat, frills dimming with dread. "It's calibration. They tuned to us." Telemetry unspooled across the hollow. Frequency countermatch at 0.03 seconds, energy redirection rate at 98%, structural resonance shift at 1.4 microns. No species in the Council had ever displayed adaptation speeds like this. No species had ever treated a containment volley as a data sample. One of the humans sent a single packet of information back toward the station. No message, no threat, just a compressed block of efficiency logs, metrics of their own precision. It was not communication, it was demonstration. Proof they had absorbed every joule deliberately, studied it, cataloged it. A stinger cut the air like cold iron. They're measuring us. Fear crept through the chamber with slow, surgical pressure. The humans were not resisting the Council's authority. They were analyzing it, dissecting the tools meant to restrain them, learning the limits of systems that had gone unchallenged for centuries. And still, the Terran ships advanced, gliding through the final layers of the containment dome with unbroken formation. Not one ship deviated by even a meter. Not one pilot reacted with aggression or retreat. Their discipline was weaponized silence, their restraint more threatening than any display of force. Valor stared at the hollow as the final efficiency metric scrolled across it. Energy to motion disruption, 0%. Zero effect, zero deterrence, zero control. The Council's greatest enforcement tool had just failed without leaving a scratch. And the humans had not even fired back. They expected hesitation. They expected negotiation. They expected humans to slow once the containment volleys failed. But when the Terran courier formation reached the outbound boundary, the real doctrine revealed itself, not in words, but in motion. The 9 ships shifted into a tight spear formation, engines dim for half a second, then igniting with a brilliance that spiked every sensor in the station. Acceleration registered at 12.4 G and climbing, far beyond Council safety limits, far beyond what any regulated species was permitted to attempt. Valor felt his throat tighten. No species ran above 9G without structural compromise. No species ran above 10G without risking fatality. Yet the humans vaulted past those thresholds as though physics bent around them. Their hulls held, their trajectories sharpened, their intent was unmistakable. Intercept. The Council scrambled response assets. 23 interception ships launched from the lower bays, fanning out to form a tri-layered net. It was textbook doctrine. 3 tiers of converging vectors, each designed to limit acceleration lanes and force a target into geometric slowdown. Against any normal species, it would have worked. Against humans at 12.4 G, it was already obsolete. The interceptors moved to cut the spear's path. Their computers projected impact corridors, predicting where the Terran ships would break formation and lose coherence. But the humans did not break. They adjusted by millimeters, reshaping formation density with fluid precision. Every shift was instantaneous. Every movement was coordinated. Every data point contradicted Council tactical assumptions. It was asymmetric warfare unfolding at the simplest level, speed. A captain on the second-tier wing cursed as the Terran lead ship cut directly across his angle. Too fast to track, too stable to disrupt. Trajectory impossible, he barked. They're riding a burnout curve beyond safe tolerances. But the humans were not burning out. Their engines glowed with controlled fury, not desperation. Their hulls remained dark and cool, absorbing the stress through systems the Council did not understand. The formation slipped through the first intercept line like a blade through drifting fog. A stinger hit the tactical feed like a pulse of cold static.
They're not fleeing, they're repositioning. Tension spiked. The second-tier interceptors attempted a crosslock. 8 ships rotated their gravititic spines at full output, producing a barrier field designed to distort vector momentum. It had stopped vast graders. It had halted Ethran sliprunners. It had never failed. It failed now. Humans cut through the distorted vector field as if it were a mild breeze. Their acceleration increased as they did, 12.4 g to 12.8 g, then 13.1 g. Telemetry readings flickered into red tolerance bands. Council captains shouted over each other, demanding recalibration, demanding harmonic disruption, demanding something that could slow the Terran spear. Nothing worked. The third-tier interceptors tried direct block maneuvers, swinging into the predicted collision path. But the humans shifted trajectory by only 2.7 degrees, enough to slip between the block's timing and execute a flawless bypass. No evasive flourish, no chaotic drift, just disciplined precision honed to the edge of impossibility. Valor felt the creeping dread of realization. This was not improvisation. It was doctrine, codified, trained, rehearsed. The chamber AI attempted to model the tactic, a blend of kinetic optimization, inertial alignment, and human biological tolerance thresholds. But every simulation ended in the same conclusion. Terran maneuvering exceeded all known Council interception capabilities. A second stinger rippled through the stunned silence. We cannot catch them. The truth settled with crushing weight. The humans were not outrunning the Council. They were outthinking it, executing acceleration warfare designed to exploit bureaucratic predictability. Every Council tactic assumed compliance. Every maneuver assumed shared limits. Humans had quietly abandoned those limits decades ago. The 9 ships broke free of the last interceptor net and streaked into open space, formation intact, acceleration stable, intent sharp as a blade. They had not fired a single shot. And yet the Council's proud enforcement doctrine lay in ruins behind them, shattered by speed alone, as the humans surged outward with a precision that left no doubt.
Asymmetric warfare had just begun. They finally authorized force. Not containment, not deterrence, force. The Council's interception failures had rattled every tier of command, and now a rapid response wing of 32 ships surged from the auxiliary docks, engines flaring in a pattern meant to overwhelm the Terran spear. Their intent was clear: collapse the formation, disable the couriers, and drag humanity back into the chamber under the weight of protocol and humiliation. High Chancellor Valor watched from the tactical deck, convinced overwhelming numbers would correct the earlier embarrassment. The Terrans did not adjust course. They simply tightened formation by an almost imperceptible 0.4 meters, enough to alter aerodynamic harmonics, enough to signal readiness. Their engines dimmed to a precise burn, stabilizing at 13.2 G for exactly 1 second. Council algorithms flagged the maneuver as pre-strike calibration. Some captains panicked, others prepared to fire, but none understood what was coming. The first volley came from the rapid response wing, non-lethal kinetic disruptors designed to scatter formations without causing hull breaches. They fired in a converging fan, textbook, elegant, overwhelming. The humans answered with silence. Then the railguns spoke. A single Terran ship fired first, one round perfectly threaded between the incoming disruptor arcs, moving at a velocity that spiked every sensor on the grid. The projectile cut across space like a line drawn by a surgeon. Impact: one enemy ship stabilizer array. Effect: total incapacitation with 0 fatalities. The Council crew was alive, but adrift, their systems offline with clinical precision. The chamber feed froze for a heartbeat. Then the rest of the Terran formation fired. 9 ships, 9 railguns, 9 shots placed with impossible accuracy, each one threading through moving vectors, interference fields, and tactical debris without grazing a single unintended target. Every projectile struck a critical but non-lethal point: engine housings, sensor nodes, gravitic spines. Each impact disabled without killing. The whole exchange took 6 seconds. Formation collapse, total. Casualties, 0. A stinger cut through the control room's air like a blade of ice. 6 seconds, 0 losses. Council officers shouted in disarray, attempting to salvage the intercept wing, but the rapid response ships were already drifting, harmless, inert, intact. Terran rounds had pierced no hulls, they had only dismantled capability. It was mastery disguised as restraint, dominance shaped with mathematical mercy. The humans moved through the collapsing formation like a spear gliding through reeds. They did not slow, they did not alter trajectory. Their railguns returned to standby as if the maneuver had been routine. Every second of data from the strike streamed into Council systems. Telemetry, heat curves, velocity arcs, an unintentional confession of Terran perfection. "What doctrine is that?" a stunned commander whispered. "Precision threading," another replied, "but scaled, militarized, optimized." Valor stared at the hollow as if it were lying to him. Railguns were considered crude, ancient weapons from a forgotten era. Yet the humans wielded them like instruments of surgical control, unbound by the ceremonial warfare the Council preferred. This was kinetic supremacy, refined over generations, hidden behind diplomatic compliance until the moment they chose to reveal it. A second stinger punctuated the silence. They chose not to kill. That was what truly terrified the chamber. The Council doctrine assumed species either submitted or slaughtered. Humanity demonstrated a third path, absolute dominance without death. They could have shattered the intercept wing. They didn't. And that choice told the galaxy everything. The Terran spear tightened formation again, unhurried, unafraid, the path ahead already calculated. Behind them, 32 Council ships drifted powerless, but alive, an entire doctrine dismantled without a single casualty. The humans left the wreckage of assumptions in their wake, accelerating toward a purpose the Council had never imagined, while the chamber absorbed the truth that could no longer be ignored. The first clean strike was not an attack. It was a warning. The truth reached the chamber not as a declaration, but as a quiet transmission. One Terran data burst routed through diplomatic channels the Council believed they still controlled. Valor expected defiance, justification, or even gloating after the humiliating precision strike. Instead, the packet contained a map. 2 systems pulsed in red, Calitha IV and Orion Reach, Council border sectors long considered stable, prosperous, and insignificant. Yet the Terran data showed something else entirely: gravitational shear, energy voids, and orbital decay patterns that did not match any known threat. For a moment, no one spoke. The humans were not showing strength. They were showing imbalance. Valor forced composure into his voice as he demanded clarification. Why send this now? Why expose such data? A reply came, not spoken, but visual. The second layer of the Terran packet unfolded, revealing timestamps from Council probe activity. 3 probes had entered Calitha IV's outer drift in the past cycle. None returned. 2 more had been sent to Orion Reach. Both vanished. No alerts had been filed. No warnings issued. The Council had hidden the failures. The humans had noticed. Telemetric signatures filled the chamber. Orbital fracturing at 0.4 AU, anomalous mass shadows drifting along the system's edge, sensor ghosts clustering in patterns reminiscent of cold behavior rather than random scattering. The chamber murmured in rising panic. This was not territorial defiance, it was a threat analysis, and the Terrans were providing it without accusation or demand. A stinger slid into the silence like a whispered verdict. You were looking the other way. Valor stiffened, the implication stung. Had humanity been tracking these anomalies while pretending compliance? Had their 3 disciplined withdrawals been something else? Strategic repositioning, reconnaissance, preparation? The uncomfortable truth carved its way into the Council's collective awareness. The Terrans had not acted out of rebellion at all. They acted because something else was happening at the rim. An Aethran envoy finally broke the stillness, asking why the humans had not reported their findings sooner.
The council screens answered for them. Each destabilization event, each disappearing probe, corresponded to moments when the council had been chastising humanity for their outdated systems, their reckless independence, their refusal to adopt gravitic standards. The council had been too busy correcting humanity to listen to humanity. The humans had chosen to prepare instead. Valor struggled to regain narrative control. According to their curves, compliance will halt, the rim will collapse. But the predictive curves told a harsher story. Kali IV's inner ring will collapse within 4 cycles. Orion Reach will lose orbital cohesion within 2. These are not hypotheticals, these are countdowns. Then the third layer of the Terran packet unfolded, a simple line of text encoded in diplomatic clearance. Justice first, control never. It was not a threat, it was a frame. Humanity was positioning itself not as a challenger, but as a stabilizing force responding to dangers the Council had ignored. Their precision strikes, their refusal to cause casualties, their disciplined silence, it all led here. They were not destabilizing the galaxy. They were reacting to one already destabilized. Another murmur swept the chamber as the Terran packet closed with an unspoken promise. Humanity will intervene where failure threatens lives, not to dominate, to protect. The lights dimmed as the final image lingered. A lone sensor ghost.
Across the Orion Reach perimeter, the Council stared at it in uneasy silence, sensing that whatever humanity had prepared for was already moving. They had treated the withdrawals as cowardice. Every Council record, every tactical review, every chamber briefing framed humanity's 3 strategic retreats of the past century as evidence of weakness, species-level hesitance disguised as discipline. Valor himself had used them as rhetorical weapons, reminders that Terrans lacked the temperament for sustained engagement. But when the chamber AI cross-referenced the newly received Terran data with historical motion logs, the first cracks appeared. The timelines aligned too perfectly, too deliberately. Each withdrawal coincided with unreported anomalies along the galactic rim. The Council had misunderstood the pattern entirely. The lights dimmed as the AI projected the first event, the Halvern Drift withdrawal, 87 years ago. Humanity had pulled a fleet of 12 ships from joint operations, citing environmental navigation uncertainty. The Council mocked them for months, yet the Terran packet revealed they had detected faint mass shadows, identical to the ones now destabilizing Calith 4. The humans hadn't fled, they had tested response time. A low murmur filled the chamber. The second projection appeared, the Yareth Corridor incident, 50 years prior. Terran outposts had gone silent for exactly 41 minutes before reactivating and evacuating without casualties. At the time, the Council interpreted the maneuver as panic. Now the chamber saw the truth. The humans had executed a full system repositioning drill, identical to the one they performed before leaving today's session. Same formation structure, same timestamp alignment, same message embedded in motion rather than words. A stinger settled on the feed like a cold realization. They were practicing. Valor's jaw tensed. The chamber felt suddenly too small. The final projection rose, the silent vector recall, 18 years ago. A complete withdrawal of Terran research teams from a Council-funded frontier cluster. They claimed equipment irregularities. The Council dismissed them as paranoid, but the Terran packet exposed the real reason. Rising sensor noise that matched the current 108 ghost signatures drifting toward the rim. The humans had identified the pattern long before the Council believed it even existed. A second stinger followed, sharp as a blade of truth. They warned us. We laughed. The atmosphere curdled. Delegates shifted uneasily as the overlay expanded, revealing the real purpose of the previous withdrawals: discipline. Each event was a scaled rehearsal, testing timing, coordination, and acceleration doctrine under the guise of retreat. The humans had not been shrinking from conflict. They had been training for a larger one. The chamber AI displayed Terran positional logs,
Perfect alignment, zero drift, identical vector calls repeated across decades. No species held doctrine with that level of continuity. No one, except humans, whose cultural emphasis on protocol had been mocked for generations. Now that protocol revealed itself as a strategic backbone none of the council had anticipated. An Athran strategist whispered that the humans had effectively run a century-long readiness exercise right under the council's eyes. A Vask commander muttered that a species capable of that level of foresight was not impulsive, it was inevitable. Even Valor, pride cracking under weight, struggled to maintain his composure as the data continued to flow. The fourth and final layer of the Terran packet unfolded, a simple chart comparing council response times with Terran drills across decades. The conclusion was brutal. Humanity had been faster, more adaptive, more prepared, every time. Not for war, for what was coming from the rim. The chamber fell into a somber quiet as the AI closed the projection. The truth was undeniable. The Terran withdrawals had never been about leaving. They were learning. And every move made today, every silent walkout, every acceleration spike, every zero-casualty strike had been the culmination of a strategy a century in the making. Valor felt the balance of the galaxy shift beneath him, no longer confident which side held the weight. The first ghost appeared as a flicker on the chamber's central hollow, one of the 108 anomalies humanity had flagged. It drifted across the Orion Reach perimeter with a cold, deliberate pattern, not random at all. Valor stiffened as the AI magnified its trajectory. The reading was faint but structured, like the echo of a machine older than anything in the Council archives, and humanity had mapped every one of them. The Terran packet's fourth layer unlocked, revealing the offensive models. Not aggression, not conquest, response doctrine. Humanity had run simulations on every ghost line vector, predicting how each anomaly would move if it advanced beyond the rim. They had been studying these patterns for decades, quietly building a doctrine for something the Council had refused to acknowledge. Now the chamber saw the models unfold, 108 anomalies aligned in a wide arc, creeping inward like a slow tightening fist. A low alarm pulsed through the tactical deck. The Council scrambled what remained of their ready fleets. 87 ships from nearby sectors rushed into formation with hasty calibration. They intended to run a preemptive screening maneuver to show they still held military authority. But the humans had already projected the outcome. Their simulations played side by side with the Council's real-time deployments, highlighting mismatches and inevitable failures. The Council did not understand the scale until the first contact. The lead anomaly passed within 0.2 AU of a Council scout. Its sensors flatlined instantly, not a strike, but a suppression field. The ship drifted, lights dying one by one, every system falling quiet. No damage, no casualties, just absolute disarmament. A stinger lanced across the chamber feed. This is how they hunt. Panic rose. The Council ordered a full engagement. Their ships opened with gravitic nets, thermal beams, suppression arcs, an entire doctrine of ceremonial force meant to impress more than destroy. None of it mattered. The anomalies moved through the volleys like shadows through light. Their presence disrupted gravitic cohesion. Their fields inverted thermal charge. They rendered entire weapons grids inert with silent precision. It was disarmament on a scale no species had ever prepared for. Then the humans moved. 9 Terran ships, still in spear formation, broke acceleration and reoriented toward the Council's collapsing line. They did not fire on the anomalies, not once. Instead, they targeted Council ships about to be overtaken. Railguns hummed with clinical accuracy, launching non-lethal rounds that disabled propulsion, shut down overtaxed weapons, or forced emergency drift. In 6 minutes, the battlefield shifted. Council fleets stopped dying. They started drifting, intact, alive, unable to interfere. Humanity was saving them. Another stinger punctured the rising quiet. Domination isn't destruction. The chamber watched in stunned silence as Terran ships threaded between anomalies, recording telemetry, mapping field behaviors, feeding real-time data back to every vessel still operational. Their vector work was flawless. 2-degree shifts here, microburns there, each maneuver shaped with mathematical control. The humans weren't attacking. They were containing. By minute 9, the anomaly slowed. Their suppression fields dimmed as Terran ships lured them outward with calibrated energy pulses, matching earlier readings from the rim. One by one, the ghost signatures retreated into the dark, exactly as humanity had predicted they would under controlled lure patterns. The Council ships floated alive but powerless, saved by a doctrine they had spent centuries mocking. As
the last anomaly faded from the grid, silence heavy as gravity filled the chamber. Humanity had just disarmed an unstoppable threat, preserved every life present, and dominated the entire engagement without a single lethal action. The offensive was complete, and the galaxy finally understood who had truly been watching the rim. They opened the channel only after the last anomaly vanished into the outer dark. No triumph, no demand, just a calm, steady tone that filled the chamber with the weight of inevitability. The lead Terran envoy appeared on the holo, posture straight, eyes steady, the same controlled presence that had stood in silent evaluation hours earlier. Behind him, the 9 courier ships drifted in a protective arc around disabled Council vessels, holding position with quiet precision. Council fleets remain intact, the envoy said. Not boastful, factual. 0 casualties, system stable, recovery possible. It was the first spoken Terran message since the walkout. It hit harder than any strike. Valor tried to reassert authority, insisting the Council would assess the situation and determine corrective measures. But his voice lacked its previous confidence. Protocol crumbled under the memory of Terran railguns threading between hulls without harming a soul. Under the knowledge that humanity had saved lives the Council's own doctrine had nearly sacrificed. The envoy didn't challenge him, he simply spoke again. Your fleets are in drift because they were not prepared for suppression fields. Our actions prevented loss of life. That is our priority. It must become yours. A murmur rippled through the chamber, recognition disguised as discomfort. The Council had been outmaneuvered, outpaced, and now outmoralized. The Terrans projected a document into the center holo. 9 articles, each concise, enforceable, and more ethical than anything the Council had ratified in centuries. Article 1. No species shall be compelled into restructuring by force of protocol. Article 2. Emergency intervention prioritizes life preservation above political order. Article 3. Weapon demonstrations for intimidation shall be prohibited. Article 4. Rim disturbances supersede internal power disputes. Article 5. Any species may request Terran oversight during suppression field events. And so on, each clause built not to dominate, but to reform. A stinger descended like a gavel of truth. This is governance, not control. The Council bristled. Valor demanded to know what authority humanity had to dictate terms. The envoy didn't react. His stillness carried the weight of answered questions. You lost 87 ships to disarmament in under 9 minutes, he said. We lost none. We saved yours. Authority lies with those who protect life, not those who preserve hierarchy. The chamber fell quiet. The logic was irrefutable. A second stinger cut through the uncertainty. Mercy is our protocol. In a single phrase, humanity reframed the entire balance of power. Mercy wasn't softness, it was structure. It was doctrine. It was the rule by which they operated and the rule the galaxy would now need to adopt. The envoy continued, outlining recovery assistance. Terran teams would restore drifted vessels, share suppression field telemetry, and stabilize the shaken sectors of Calith 4 and Orion Reach. But there was a condition, spoken without threat. Any system that accepts Terran aid must commit to transparent governance and equitable treatment of all subordinate species. Justice, not domination. The Council had no counterargument. Their fleets floated helpless. Their pride lay scattered across tactical logs. Humanity had acted with power and restraint, proving itself the stabilizing force they claimed to mimic.
As the Terran envoy closed the channel, his final line settled over the chamber like a quiet verdict. "We will not rule you. We expect you to rule yourselves, correctly." The momentum passed cleanly into the next moment, heavy and unavoidable as the galaxy absorbed the new standards forced upon it by mercy rather than conquest. The sealed packet opened without flourish, just a soft pulse across the chamber's central hollow, its encryption folding away in clean layers. Humanity had left it behind when they walked out, a final message overlooked in the Council's rush to reassert dominance. Now, after the anomaly's retreat and the forced shift in protocol, the chamber faced what the Terrans had prepared them to see. The hollow expanded into a starfield. Not map data, not warnings, a record. The first frame showed a Council probe entering the rim's uncharted margin, perfect telemetry, steady thrust. Then, at 0.7 AU past the drift line, the signal flickered and vanished. No explosion, no damage, just disappearance. Clean and silent, as if the probe had been erased from existence. A ripple of unease spread through the chamber. The second frame revealed another probe, Terran-built, far sturdier, approaching the same region from a different vector. It lasted 3 seconds longer before its systems went dark. Its final log, preserved only by hard-coded redundancy, displayed a brief surge, a patterned shadow, vast and structured, moving with intent. Then, nothing. A stinger slid into the chamber's air like the edge of a cold horizon. Something waits beyond the rim. The next layer of the packet unfolded, comparative scans. Terran analysis overlaid decades of quiet anomalies, gravitational dips measured in micro-Gs, mass shadows drifting in synchronized arcs, suppression fields identical to those the Council had just witnessed. Humanity had tracked 108 such signatures, but only 7 had ever approached Council space before today. The others lingered farther out, forming a crescent around unmapped void. The AI tried to project their shapes. It failed. The humans didn't claim knowledge, they offered structure. The packet revealed their models. Slow vectors suggesting coordinated behavior, not random drift. Clusters forming and dissolving like a distant machine mind testing boundaries. And deeper still, heat signatures so faint they were nearly theoretical, arranged in a pattern resembling an ancient perimeter. A protective line? A waiting line? An encroaching line? Valor swallowed as telemetry fed into the display. For the first time since the humans had stood and walked out, he understood the scale of his error. Humanity had not left the session because of insult. They had left because the galaxy could no longer afford the Council's distractions. Another frame unfolded. 3 Terran research crews standing by their courier ships, eyes fixed outward, sensors aimed toward the silent region. The caption beneath them was brutally simple. "We prepared because you did not." The chamber felt the weight of it. The packet's final segment displayed a projection. Within 11 cycles, the rim shadows would advance inward by 0.6 AU. Small in distance, catastrophic in implication. If today's anomalies were only scouts, the main body had yet to arrive. A second stinger fell with quiet inevitability. This was the first movement. The hollow dimmed, leaving only a soft outline of the rim, vast, dark, expanding. Humanity's envoy returned to the channel briefly, voice steady, free of judgment. "We will investigate the silent region. We will share what we learn. But the galaxy must choose whether to pretend this threat is distant or prepare as if it is near." No threat, no ultimatum. The channel closed, leaving the Council staring at the growing shadows on the hollow. Those shapes were not drifting, they were gathering. And humanity, disciplined and unshaken, was already moving toward them. The sealed packet opened without flourish, just a soft pulse across the chamber's central hollow, its encryption folding away in clean layers. Humanity had left it behind when they walked out, a final message overlooked in the Council's rush to reassert dominance. Now, after the anomaly's retreat and the forced shift in protocol, the chamber faced what the Terrans had prepared them to see. The hollow expanded into a starfield. Not map data, not warnings, a record. The first frame showed a Council probe entering the rim's uncharted margin, perfect telemetry, steady thrust. Then, at 0.7 AU past the drift line, the signal flickered and vanished. No explosion, no damage, just disappearance. Clean and silent, as if the probe had been erased from existence. A ripple of unease spread through the chamber. The second frame revealed another probe, Terran-built, far sturdier, approaching the same region from a different vector. It lasted 3 seconds longer before its systems went dark. Its final log, preserved only by hard-coded redundancy, displayed a brief surge, a patterned shadow, vast and structured, moving with intent. Then, nothing. A stinger slid into the chamber's air like the edge of a cold horizon. Something waits beyond the rim. The next layer of the packet unfolded, comparative scans. Terran analysis overlaid decades of quiet anomalies, gravitational dips measured in micro-Gs, mass shadows drifting in synchronized arcs, suppression fields identical to those the Council had just witnessed. Humanity had tracked 108 such signatures, but only 7 had ever approached Council space before today. The others lingered farther out, forming a crescent around unmapped void. The AI tried to project their shapes. It failed. The humans didn't claim knowledge, they offered structure. The packet revealed their models. Slow vectors suggesting coordinated behavior, not random drift. Clusters forming and dissolving like a distant machine mind testing boundaries. And deeper still, heat signatures so faint they were nearly theoretical, arranged in a pattern resembling an ancient perimeter. A protective line? A waiting line? An encroaching one? Valor swallowed as telemetry fed into the display. For the first time since the humans had stood and walked out, he understood the scale of his error. Humanity had not left the session because of insult. They had left because the galaxy could no longer afford the Council's distractions. Another frame unfolded. 3 Terran research crews standing by their courier ships, eyes fixed outward, sensors aimed toward the silent region. The caption